My name is Kycell, and this is Chapter 20 of my great work on the forgotten Minotaur King. When my group, Myrink, Ahani, and I, finally returned to the Mindas castle courtyards, we made our way through milling groups of Goldenrod citizens and avoided heavy debris-toting ogres to arrive at the entrance of the primary keep. Ahani and I would be leaving Tristafe soon to report to our respective superiors in our recently assigned posts. Her in the Black-smithy, as she was unfairly profiled due to her half-dwarven nature, and I in the library, my chosen vocation. Tristafe, due to an uncharacteristic bout of showboating she was still mortified by, would be reporting to the demoniac, avian satyr-like brute Fugazzi, who we were intent on avoiding. But we needed information if we were to retrieve the young boy he kidnapped after brutally assaulting Kind the Minotaur.
I will gather any information I can. We will reconvene at Dr. Sullivan's dorm tonight,
Myrink gave us one more sorrowful, but still brave as ever, glance before heading through the large oaken doors and towards the royal chambers. Hopefully, she would maintain cover and not get herself into any trouble. Me, Ahani, both very much relied on her for our survival. We turned from the main hall entrance and began meandering, while keeping an eye out for any signal or signage leading to the Mindas Castle dungeons, as that was the primary landmark given to both of us regarding the location of the library and blacksmithy. Any citizens we canvassed seemed to have no clue where any of those said buildings were located, so we resolved to ask one of the half-orc guards, whose presence both me and Ahani were familiar with from our home kingdom of Wolfkeep. We found two bracketing a door of a small gatehouse to the west of the courtyard. I politely asked the more shrewd-looking one if this was the entrance to the dungeons, the library in Tower Q, or the blacksmithy. Scratching her thick, furrowed unibrow with lengthy arms that nearly scraped the ground, she looked at me quizzically.
You what? You want to go to the dungeon? You some kind of pervert? Anyways, it's no. Those are all by them turrets and watchtowers to the south of the castle, isn't it?
With a swift and courteous bow, Ahani and I backed away and made our way south of the castle entrance, and as far away from any orc guards as possible. As we rounded the back south corner of the courtyard and entrance, we came across an enormous portcullis gate, much larger and more sturdily designed than the gatehouse the orcs guarded. The only attendant was a single Bombogenesis ogre, large and bulbous, leaning against a gargantuan gears-encircled wheel, a contraption likely utilized to open the portcullis itself. Hesitantly, I approached the ogre, intent on asking if we could enter this location, only to find both me and Ahani being shoved past by a diminutive red figure.
out of my way, you ignoramuses. I have important work here. You buffoon. Open this gate and let me through. Lord Carnager needs these book jacket dusters.
Brandishing what looked like a shrunken feather duster threateningly was a red-scaled and hefty-winged draconid youth. His protuberant snout angrily flashed rows of sharp teeth, but his 4-foot height ruined any other potential intimidation factors based on appearance. Despite his frankly rude behavior, the ogre jumped to attention at the mention of Lord Carnager and began turning the wheel to raise the portcullis. The short dragon boy ran past, excitedly tucking the book duster under his armpit as he passed. Wordlessly, Ahani and I ducked under and followed suit. The following area was indeed how one might picture a traditional dungeon to look. Many rows of uncomfortably dirty and dangerous-looking cells, and various rats or insects crawling the walls. Mildly to my surprise, despite the aggressiveness of the Rajalasad occupation of the kingdom, the entire area was empty as far as I could tell. Not even a guard or torturer in sight, to my relief. We continued through the quiet and eerie area until we came to a set of tower stairs. One pair led down to where one could feel the violent heat of a furnace and the bustle of angry shouting dwarves. The other set to a door you could see the light of outside seeping through the cracks. This was where we part again. Ahani unshouldered her notebooks and writing utensils for what felt like the 100th time this week, and gave them to me, along with a strong hug, as she dutifully went down to the forge. I stood there until she rounded the corner and left my line of sight, before I began heading up the short set of steps and through the door marked Tower Q, finding myself before the gates of the Mindas Castle Royal Library. Crossing the small patch of grassland between the dungeon exit and Tower Q entrance felt like traveling twice the castle's width, due to my anticipation. The tower was pristine, although it lacked the alternating golden brickwork the forward-facing towers of the castle featured. I wondered if both of those facts were due to the late King Birk, nor Krunturg himself seeming to be avid readers in their time. The doors to the library, I noticed, were still slowly creaking closed. The small draconid from earlier must have just arrived moments before I had. Finally, ending my trek and beginning my long-awaited return to academia, I pushed the doors open and entered. Given the lack of grandioseness on the outside, I must admit I wasn't expecting much, but what I was greeted with was even more underwhelming than I had thought possible. While many shelves bracketed the single spacious room, and a few more formed a grid through the center, most of the shelves were barren, or possessed tomes so old I would hesitate to page through without an archivist to accompany me and assure they didn't crumble. At a glance, they didn't seem particularly organized. I saw a tome on abyss-dwelling horrors next to one on how to trace family lineages through tree stumps, followed by one on kintsugi soup recipes. I walked among them with my mouth agape at the state of these works, when I heard footsteps swiftly approaching.
Excuse me, we aren't expecting visitors at this time, or likely ever. If you are some kind of book thief, I'm afraid you've come to the wrong house of knowledge.
The Draconid's membranous wings, which poked through shoulder holes in his pristine crimson scholar robes, beat in frustration and caused plumes of dust so thick both of us began coughing fits. I and the Draconid swatted the dust from our faces and spat it from our mouths as we regained composure. I felt it prudent to introduce myself before another misunderstanding occurred. However, at this moment I realized we hadn't come up with proper false identities before venturing out. All of our names were likely known at this point. I put out a hand to the lad and proudly said, "Hello, I am a traveling scholar from a small Violetal village." Thank goodness I remembered my disguise of purple skin and false third eye at this moment. "My name is Kycell Kakshi. I could only hope Ahani and Myrink were half as quick as I was, given the situation." The red Draconid didn't return my handshake offer and simply looked directly up into the air behind me. Confused, I turned and saw a floating black cloak and dress clothes wearing humanoid figure, loftily putting away much more immaculate and intact tomes on shelves I hadn't noticed, bracketing the ceiling's walls. The figure turned, a pallid and sunken-eyed face towards me. He had a snub-nosed, dully pointed ears, and, most prominently, 2 long, clean fangs protruding from under his upper lip and down his chin. I felt my heart nearly stop, but then began to race. Then the thought flashed through my mind that might attract this vampire. Stopping myself from falling to the now dust-caked floor, I shakily reintroduced myself to this horrific being. It then drifted down in a most unnatural way and noiselessly touched the floor.
"Oh, another student for the library."
Reaching out a creaking, elongated, and sharp-nailed hand from beneath his robes, I tentatively grabbed it, only to find my entire body grow cold as ice. I thought it was just my extreme fear, but an exhalation of my breath misted in the air, as if I was out on the coldest winter night of the year.
"Tell me, Kycell, are you truly a scholar?"
While my body was ice cold, his eyes, which were previously a sharp yellow, began to look like actual burning pits of flame. My organs felt like they were on fire, and I could barely stand. If it weren't for the steel-like grip he continued to have my arm in, I stuttered out an honest and true, yes, I am a scholar."
"What is your life's ambition?"
Again, through the burning pain, I spoke. "To write many history books, to tell tales others hide or ignore."
"Oh, well, that is wonderful to hear."
He finally released my arm, and I collapsed onto the ground, and I'm somewhat embarrassed to admit, curled into a fetal position.
Why, that's a better answer than you gave, young Chinook. Now, help him up, won't you?
The Draconid reluctantly grabbed me by my arm and hoisted me to my feet, which were wobbling uncontrollably and promptly caused me to nearly topple into a shelf containing books on high-level psionic magic and late millennia hair fashions of the pre-Affliction Wars Fey dimension.
I'd like to welcome you to the Mindas Royal Library, such as it is. I am Natanus Carnager. You can call me Count Natanus Half-Elven, or Lord Carnager. Anything else, I'll ignore you. Now chop chop, boys. I want every book in this establishment read, cover to cover, and restored to brand new.
Hi, my name is Matthew Lewis, and I do the voice of Kycell along with all the additional voices in The Forgotten Minotaur King. I hope you enjoy the podcast and continue to listen into the future. If you want to support my content, please donate to my Patreon, Matthew Lewis Podcasts. Subscribe to my YouTube channel, Matthew Lewis Podcasts, all one word. Follow me on Twitter at Matthew Lewis P. Or leave a positive maximum star review on your podcast app of choice. If you found this podcast, I assume you're familiar enough with the genre to know how important reviews are to the survival of a channel. And I hope you recommend this to your friends. Or if you didn't like it, you could recommend it to your enemies, and I'll teach them a lesson. Keep it sleazy, folks, and thank you.